Hey everyone. All right. Do we have agenda items for this week? Okay. Silence is great. All right. Let's see. Let me figure out my screen sharing and then we can go through pull requests. Okay. I don't have chat open, so if anybody's saying anything in chat, please just say it out loud. Oh, I haven't had a bunch of PRs related to SUSE in the last few days, and there's a KVP PR related to Cosmos. Okay, sounds good. Are there any specific pull requests we should go through?
All I know is the ones that Ivan is working on are specifically as a result of a bunch of SUSE people being blocked on updating Rancher desktop on the Spin CLI.
Okay, gotcha. So high priority there, and we should review those pretty quickly. Okay, sounds good. Mikkel, feel free to speak.
That it's not specific to the pull request, so if you want to go through these first, I can hold.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else on any pull requests that they want to call attention to or talk through? I wonder what's up with the WASI Observe. I know Caleb's time zone is different, so take a look at if there's anything blocking that. Okay. I can follow up with that too. Okay, yeah, go for it, Mikkel.
Thanks. So have we, as the broader spin community, I assume, I don't know why I'm saying we, are there any plans on next release? Date, features, any milestone being set or discussed?
No, we haven't really done any of that since KubeCon. We can, and we can talk about it now. Um, we usually have a monthly cadence per release, and we haven't done one for December. So that's something that we could start looking at for sure. It is getting kind of towards the end of the year, so I wonder if there's anything specific that we have in our queue, in our PR queue that's been closed that we want to get in. And there are template fixes, the WASI P1 replacement, and a few other things that would be nice to get in. So I think we have enough to cut a release if we want to do that. Is that something that we want to do,
Yeah,
Mikkel?
I think the conversation we had earlier about oh, go ahead, Michael. Sorry, did not see you on.
Oh yeah, no, I don't have so I don't have urgent issues or anything that I think would be good to ship necessarily. It was more a question whether something was planned, just to know if there's a thing coming or not. I mean, I have maybe a principal opinion that will be good as soon as one thing shipped to sort of set up when the next shipping milestone is, whether it's a date thing or whether it's, I don't know, feature specific. So
Vaughn, were
sorry,
you
right.
going to say anything? Did you unmute or was it Radu that unmuted?
Radio, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. My personal opinion is I think just having a monthly cadence is nice. Um, and if we can ship something out, let's say I don't really see anything holding us back from shipping something out this week or cutting a release this week. Probably not next week. People are probably going to be out next week and for the rest of the year. So any objection to cutting a release this week? Any preference for waiting till January for any reason? Okay, I'll propose that we maybe look at Wednesday as start looking at, sorry, I'll propose that we start gearing up to cut a release on Wednesday. Any objections? Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Mikkel, for the push. And let's keep trying to do our monthlies. I think consistency is nice. Get those little things in. And then if anybody wants to do anything differently, feel free to propose that. What other stuff do we have today to talk about?
Uh, I opened one issue that we've had some discussion about, and I don't know if it's worth having more discussion about it now that we're in person. But Joel is here, and Joel has been the primary person I've been talking to, so I can find that issue, and if it seems like it's something that more people want to talk about, we can talk about it here, and otherwise we don't have to find another place to talk about it. Um, where is it?
Is it the key value one?
Yes.
I got you. It's going to be 2952.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, basically to summarize the issue, um, like it's possible in Spin to write to a key value store and for that to basically be swallowed up, like for that write to never actually make it to the backing store. Um, and I was very surprised by that, and wrote an issue about it. And then Joel, thanks Joel, by the way, for giving all the context. Joel wrote kind of what the thought was behind it, and I'm still not sure if I'm convinced that we're thinking about it correctly. There's definitely something has to change. The question is what has to change? Is it on the WASI side with more documentation? Is it on the spin side with more documentation, or is it on the spin side with a different implementation? So I don't know. I don't know what to discuss next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually typing in a new comment on the issue when this meeting started and realized I was late. But yeah, I guess part of what would help me is understanding the circumstances under which rights were lost, specifically. Like, was there, what was the backing store? Was it just our built-in, whatchamacallit, SQLite store? Or can you tell me more about the conditions where the right was lost?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to tell you exactly how it happened. I'm hesitant to talk about it because I'm not sure it really matters per se. Like I can say that this, it's not a situation I think that will happen all the time. It's not like things are sort of so fundamentally broken that this is unusable. It's definitely sort of a slightly principled take. So the specific situation I was in was that I was creating a new backing solution to this based on Cosmos, which you can find the PR for, and I had a bug. And I didn't my app worked and I was like, okay. And then I went and ran the app again, and I was very surprised to see that the write that I had done was no longer there. Um, and there was no logging or anything like that. And so it basically just took me down a investigative rabbit hole in order to find out that what was happening was the error was being swallowed and it wasn't actually reaching it. And of course, I fixed the bug, and now it works. So like problem solves. You could argue that in a way, but I think the thing is like we have no idea what will happen between when you're running on the spin server and when it reaches um the backing store, whatever it is. And so yeah, you know, is it likely that the entire network will go down? Kind of depends on where you're running. Like if you're running spin in an embedded environment, maybe it would be very likely that that would happen. I don't know. So yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, part of it is like, yeah, I think there's two aspects. It's like the semantics of what calling the set function or the set method on the resource does. And like, whether it's, because you've got a whole spectrum in distributed systems. On one end, you could have strict serializability, where it's like, you have sort of like a transactional confirmation, from some centralized server that basically says, yes, your write is as durable and as sequentially consistent as it could possibly be, to more of the eventual consistent kind of peer-to-peer models, where you have like a CRDT or a raft consensus algorithm or something like that, and where you're prioritizing availability, in the presence of partitions and node failures and that sort of thing. And so, part of it, what we need to do is sort of philosophically kind of position ourselves like what is the worst case scenario that we would consider to be a valid implementation in terms of like the loosest, weakest consistency model and durability model that we would consider valid, and that an application that is intended to be portable should be prepared for. And then once we've decided that, we also additionally in our implementation have to kind of decide what do we consider best effort to mean, and I think that's what I think is, I mean, both questions are super interesting and we should definitely, discuss those, both of them. But the best effort one is part of what I'm kind of drilling into here, is like, because part of what best effort could mean is not just like, we have an in-memory cache and then we have a best effort flushing that cache, but if spin shuts down or if there's some sort of bug, that, we don't have any way to propagate the error, one option would be to have like a local write-ahead log that even across spin invocations, like you could shut down spin and then start it up again. It sees its write-ahead log and it kind of, goes and flushes that log as best it can and kind of really persists in that, effort to kind of get that event to the server. Um, which raises some interesting questions also, because of what if that log is like 3 days old, in which case, well, maybe at that point it's like, the ship has sailed, like there's other stuff that has happened and we don't necessarily want that old data. And that's where you get into like vector clocks and, a bunch of stuff that to cause that, that it's basically part of what makes distributed systems hard, that you have to kind of start to wrestle with. So like I'm not, I'll admit I have strong feelings about this, and and but I also feel like we can be flexible about kind of what we want, what we think that happy middle ground that kind of meets people's expectations but also is portable, is going to be. So yeah, I'm open to,
yeah.
especially just to finish the thought. I know I've been kind of rambling here, but one, just to drive it in more of a constructive direction, maybe one thing is we could, rename the existing set to something that maybe more reflects the behavior that we currently implemented, and then have a new set that has maybe a stronger guarantee. That would be one possible way we could take this.
And I mean, just for those who haven't read through the issue, like I think I'm really happy with like let's make sure that the documentation for both the WASI implementation, like the WASI interface and the Spin bespoke interface, are extremely clear in what their semantics are, which both I would argue clearly are not. Um, and then we can just go from there. And because I think like if the uh if the semantics that we all agreed upon and are very clearly documented are that writes are kind of best effort, and you have no guarantee that that if a write returns that it will actually be persisted in any way, then the current implementation I think is sort of like lackluster. Like we don't really try very hard. We try once, and if it fails, like that's it. I think we should probably try harder than that. Um, but yeah, there are definitely some challenges with trying harder and stale data, blah blah blah. So I totally get that. But like I'm fine sort of coming off the edge and saying this is just a mild like improvement issue or something like that we don't need to necessarily prioritize. So I do think it is a question of semantics and reading the WASI docs. I was reading it and I was like this. What we have, how I understand the docs, what we have is not correct. Like the way that the docs read to me is uh, that once you write, reads are guaranteed to eventually reflect that write. And what we have right now is that reads are not guaranteed to eventually reflect the write. The reads could never see that write ever. Um, and so, yeah, we just need to sort of clarify that and make the change, and then the implementation, I think, will, you know, fall out of that with a whole bunch of caveats because yes, distributed systems are hard and making it actually fit the semantics might actually be non-trivial, but that's sort of fun we can have in the future, and I don't necessarily need to be involved in it. Uh, so yeah, how do we make progress here? Like who decides the finer, on the WASI point of things, who decides the finer point of the semantics is, well, whoever is in charge of that interface. And, there's a process for going about that. On the spin side of things, this is really detailed stuff, which most of the time doesn't matter, but sometimes it does. And I don't know if we really have a process for like saying like, okay, like we have very differing opinions which are not compatible with each other. Who makes the call? Like this is what we're gonna go with. I don't know.
I think part of the question there is like, are we gonna do we expect the spin key value interface to continue to have life now that WASI key value is a thing? And if not, if we feel like we're moving to WASI key value, then yeah, it sounds like it more the next step might be an upstream PR that can kind of invite discussion, from the WASI community in general, and hopefully arrive at some sort of consensus. If we feel like we also want spin keep value to be kind of a distinct thing that we continue maintaining, then yeah, then we'd have to decide what the process is there.
Just as a data point, I was quite surprised by this and did not expect that this was not a guaranteed right, or whatever you want to call it. Like the fact that if I deployed something into Vermion Cloud and started storing things in the key value store, I would expect that if my set call succeeded, it would actually be in a database somewhere in Fermion Cloud. So it's just a data point from a naive developer, and I don't know to the extent we actually documented that it's not guaranteed. And so I think that it adds a little bit on the urgency side of things, at least to make a decision of what the next step is. Yeah.
So is there any sort of plan of record about moving to WASI key value and moving away from spins key value, or kind of letting them evolve separately, or
I don't know that we've ever had a discussion on that actually. So that'd be good to think through.
Yeah, just as a practical point, like I think we have a lot of stuff that assumes key value. And so even if we made the decision today that WASI key value is the future and that we want to sort of change all of the templates to WASI key value and the documentation to WASI key value, I think we would still need to keep support for key value around for quite a while. And all the various implementations that run spin applications. And so I still think it's probably worth answering for spin key value, even if we want to move away from it.
So I guess where I'm going with that is if we do feel like WASI key value is eventually the future we want to aim towards, then it would be in our interest, given what you just said, to start to move spin key value to be as similar to WASI key value as possible. And to the extent that we clarify semantics and or make changes to semantics, we would want to kind of the ultimate goal would be that those would change in WASI key value and that spin key value would just kind of follow suit. Does that sound plausible?
Yeah.
And I think we couldn't actually drop support for spin key value until the next, at least major version release. So feels like a long way. I wanted to touch on the decision-making piece of this because we had discussed decision-making and the governance process while we were going through that, and Radu dropped a link. But I do believe that we were, looking at everything being consensus-based. And so I just wanted to maybe we could touch on that as a group and try to figure out what that means. And so it seems like, you know, uh, what we discussed is that in all great scenarios, like in the ideal scenario is that everybody agrees, but clearly there are situations where people don't agree. And I have to remind myself, I think it was that we decided in the worst case scenario when people don't agree that we would call for a supermajority vote from the project's maintainers for a decision. Is that still how we want to go about things? So practically speaking, this looks like, hey, we have, a change to a specification. You open a pull request. Uh, if and when you get the votes, you basically get to merge that. Ryan, I'm glad you raised your hand because I know you have the most experience in this realm of decision-making processes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think just as a point of order too, or a clarification point, like we wrote down objection-free consensus, which I think was something that I had originally put in there. So if it's and the definition of objection-free consensus, at least that I use, and maybe I think we have a glossary. So a decision is made when all decision makers have had time to consider the decision and do not raise any objections. So it doesn't mean for the decision to be made doesn't mean that everybody agrees with the decision. It's that they do not object to it. And that might sound subtle at first, but I think it's a very big difference. When when you agree with something, it means that you're in favor of it. You actively think that it's the right way to go. Whereas when you don't object to something, you might think it's the wrong thing to do, but you don't have any alternative that could work better, or you're willing to live with the consequences of that decision. Um, and in my experience, like it's very rare for like assuming good faith, which I think we can assume here, where everybody is wants to reach consensus and is willing to work hard towards that and willing to change their minds in order to reach consensus. Deadlock is really tough. So I've been in the Rust governance sphere for several years now. It's been 3 or 4 years. It's a very big project, much bigger than this, and we've never run into this situation, not once. So I think it's good to clarify, and like better to clarify it now when there is no decision that we have to make rather than like, oh crap, we can't make a decision. Let's like retroactively put in a mechanism. But I just wanted to set the stage for like how often I think that this will come up because I think that can help us help inform what like a proper solution should look like in that case.
Thanks for the context. That's like a lot clearer now. And I needed a refresher, so that's nice.
One other point is that if it does get to a point where you have to vote, that sort of definitionally means that somebody is going to be, for lack of a better term, pissed off because they actively think that that is the wrong decision. Otherwise, they wouldn't object. So this is sort of definitionally a breakdown in governance. Like you have people who are involved in the governance who think that the decision made is the wrong decision, and think it so much that they would otherwise object to the decision being made. Um, because if it wasn't a big deal, then more than likely they would say, well, I think it's the wrong decision, but I don't object because I want to see this decision move forward, or I don't want to cause this stir up in order to do it. So if they do think that it's worth causing a stir up, then you sort of again definitionally have a breakdown in governance. And whatever mechanism we decide on, um, I think in the governance document, it's been a while since I've read it, but call for like a supermajority vote there. Like the question sort of has to follow then like what happens afterwards, because the people who don't vote for that will be sad, and often and not really sad. They'll be angry probably, and you have to be able to figure out how governance goes forward from that situation.
Michael?
I just maybe this is kind of a relevancy check question, but I didn't necessarily hear the particular issue to be at the point where we believe there would be hard objections. Just wanted to figure out if it sounds to me like what's needed is someone putting forward a proposal specifically about what to change. I don't I didn't hear that there was like strong objections to either the alternatives that were discussed or presented so far. So
I can talk to that. I think like you're right, the decision that we have now, like I don't think we're anywhere close to not reaching a consensus here. We just need to do the work, and I'm sure like Joel and I, who are currently thinking about this the most, are I don't think that we would come even close to not being able to find some sort of consensus, even if both of us have extremely um, kind of strong opinions on it. There's just no way. I think what Michelle brought up though is like a kind of a thought of, oh, hey, what happens if that weren't the case? And as I said before, like it's best to think about these questions when they seem irrelevant, because when they are relevant, it's already too late. And so I welcome these kinds of things because I've been in a governance crisis before and it's horrible. It's literally the worst thing I've ever done in my career, and I never want to repeat it again. And I feel like I'm not stating that strong enough. So, uh, uh, let's think about these things while they seem semi-irrelevant.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'd like to think about them also while they're still irrelevant. So I appreciate the discussion and the clarity. Also, Ryan and I were very involved, and actually Radu as well, in the governance stuff. So I think that, we wrote it and we have it, but there's a lot more to do in terms of setting our processes and, doing more with that. So it's nice to just continue remembering that's a thing, and we need to massage it and make sure it fits our needs as well. So, okay. Since we're running out of time, actually we're out of time. So if you need to drop, that's fine. I see next steps as updating the issue with the discussion we had. Ryan and Joel are going to continue to work on the key value stuff. There was one other, I think we should open an issue on a proposal for how to go forward with spin key value versus, or with spin key value and WASI KB like in the same world, um, literally and figuratively. And so I can open up that issue. Are there any other action items we need to keep track of from this conversation? Okay. Ryan, thanks for bringing up the issue. But I think these agendas have been pretty loose, so folks have just kind of been bringing up things pretty ad hoc, and I've been liking that structure. But if anybody wants to pre-fill the agenda for next time for discussions like this, that'd be great as well. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great day.